I'm Simon Marcotte, President and CEO of Northern Superior, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your interest. A lot of work has been going into this company, and there's a lot going on for a company our size. So I'll try to be as efficient as I can with time here, and then we can have a bit of a chat. I'll just mention we just recently raised money. We wanted to limit dilution. We only raised $5 million. We were offered and pushed to upsize this financing. We wanted to limit dilution at this stage, but frankly, we could probably have raised 10 times more capital than we did. So it really feels like the happy days are here again. But as you may know, I'm very bullish on the sector. And in preparation for this upcoming gold cycle, we took advantage of the dark years of mining to really consolidate a camp. And that's what I want to talk about today. So Northern Superior, first, I'll just mention that we did split the company in two recently. So that's just a quick overview of the company. We are involved into two provinces, the province of Quebec on the right and the province of Ontario on the left. But a company our size cannot do everything. We don't want to stretch ourselves too thin. But our Ontario assets didn't deserve to be on the back burner, so we've split the company in two, and we created an independent company called ONGold Resources, which I can discuss as well. It has the famous TPK project, which is a big discovery in the making, and it also has now one of the largest undeveloped projects in Canada, being Monument Bay. Agnico Eagle owns 15% of ONGold, and I will mention that we still own more than 50% of ONGold. So we have yet to distribute to our shareholders the shares that we own of ONGold. We don't have a specific strategy. I just didn't want to distribute those shares too soon, which would have put pressure on the share price of ONGold. So we want to, be a good partner here, but ultimately, there's, many different ways to crystallize this value. So coming back now to the Quebec side of things, which is the core of Northern Superior. I want to first a little bit put things into perspective, if you allow me. To me, gold is very often about the emergence of a camp. And in recent years, you've seen a few camps really take off. And even if the market was very difficult over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the companies involved in the right camps benefited tremendously with those emerging camps, and even the stock performed very well. So the largest one of those camps is Yukon. Actually, you have two camps in Yukon, Central Yukon and Western Yukon. So you had companies, like Western, White Gold, Banyan, benefiting a lot from that. So Yukon, brought a lot of created a lot of shareholder value until the unfortunate events of Victoria, obviously. But it doesn't take anything away from the fact that when a camp emerges, everybody involved tends to benefit. So other camps that did well, Guyana did very well, and companies like Reunion, Omai, G2, as you remember, did very well, especially after the Chinese came in and bought Guyana goldfields and really became the driving force of that camp. We also saw the camp of Finland, where Agnico is the driving force of the camp, but a company like Rupert or a company like Orion benefited from that. And in Finland, you have somewhere around 12 million ounces right now. And we feel very, very strongly that the next big camp to emerge will be the Chibougamau gold camp in Quebec, Canada. And the driving force of that camp will be IAMGOLD. Yet, even if IAMGOLD will be the driving force, IAMGOLD is a mid-tier producer. This would be the largest camp not owned, not at least controlled or not outright owned by one of the senior producers. So it makes quite an interesting dynamic. But as IAMGOLD continues to have tremendous success, it's moving its attention more and more towards the Chibougamau gold camp. And we stand ready to benefit a lot from that. So just moving back into exactly this camp, what it is and what we've been doing. I'll dive into this, but just give you a bit of a visual where all of these deposits are located. This new and emerging camp here is on the southwest portion of Chibougamau. So it's really, when it comes to location, it's as good as it gets. I mean, it's the province of Quebec, which is one of the best mining jurisdiction there is. It is a mining area. There's been mining all around Chibougamau for quite some time. There's two big industries there. I mean, it's mining and it's trees being cut for the lumber industry. So social acceptability is very strong. Now we're focused here. We're zooming in more on the core area where we're focused on, and this camp has really transformed itself with the discovery of Nelligan a few years ago. So this is not a camp that's been known about for decades and goes up and down with every cycle. This is something that's been discovered at the right time, right for this upcoming gold cycle. So Nelligan was the discovery of the year in 2019. And what we've done here, and the main reason we got involved in the camp, is because unlike the other camps that I was talking about, all of these deposits in the Chibougamau gold camp are very, very close to one another. So they are perfectly suited to feed the same mill, right? So we took a leadership role to consolidate this, because already all these deposits, as you're looking at, already you're looking at 12.4 million ounces that are owned either by IAMGOLD or by us, Northern Superior. So, but if you go back in time, if you go back only 3 years ago, all of these ounces were owned by 5 different companies. So obviously, nothing's going to happen if it's all fragmented like this. So that's why we took a leadership role to consolidate these ounces. So as we consolidate these resources, we make these ounces more viable and therefore more valuable, right? And there's probably more activities to come. I think anybody who knows the Chibougamau gold camp well agrees with us that all of this needs to come together so that it can be looked at and optimized and being all included in part of a mining in the same mining plan and same operation in order to feed the same mill. So there's a lot of optimization to come right now. So that's what we've been focused on. Now, if I dive a little bit more into each of these projects, without going into too much details, just so you have a really good understanding of exactly how all of this fits together. So first, Nelligan, as I mentioned, again, just to be clear, that's not us, that's IAMGOLD. Nelligan is the largest deposit of the area, at least for the time being. Nelligan has about 8.3 million ounces now at a grade at about 0.95, 0.96. So it's a typical bulk tonnage deposit. It's not dissimilar to the mine that IAMGOLD just built in Ontario, Côte Lake. And that definitely gives you the mine life. Now, when it comes down to these type of projects, bulk tonnage, large tonnage operation, the key to the success of a project like this is the payback period. So, to lower your payback period is very important, because this is what will impact the most the profitability or the economics of the project. And this is, the key metric that will decide if you're able to fund the capex for a project like this. And that's really where we believe we come in. We have the Philibert project, so the second line on this slide. The Philibert project that we own is just about 2 million ounces at about 1.1 gram a ton. So we see Philibert as the starter pit of the camp. And 1.1 over 0.95 may not sound like a lot, but it's, call it 15% more gold per ton that you mine and process. So it makes a big difference. But there's a bit more than meets the eye here, because this can be optimized. And maybe if you allow me to just scroll all the way down to this, and that may be a bit small for you to look at, but I mean, that's from the technical report of our 43101. What I'm saying here can be optimized is that if you move up the cutoff grade just a tiny bit at Philibert, if you go from 0.35 to 0.5, we lose only 10% of the ounces, which is, which speaks to the quality of the ounces. But then our grade becomes 40% higher than Nelligan. So as you can tell, that there's a lot of optimization that can be done. And the same is not true for the Nelligan resource. If you increase the cutoff grade, yes, you increase the grade, but not nearly as much as the impact that you have on Philibert. Then the second reason why we believe Philibert can really help optimize the value of the whole camp is the metallurgy. The metallurgy at Philibert is it's a simple metallurgy, easy recovery. So we've tested 3 of our key zones, and recovery comes up at 93, 95% plus. So that's, if you have better recovery, that's more gold that you recover from every ton that you mine and process, which helps your profitability of the first few years of your project. Then moving down as well to, and I will come back to talk about Philibert, because we've had a lot of drilling success recently, and it's getting a lot bigger. And we recently discovered a high grade zone underground, just underneath the pit. So I'll come back to that. But we also have the Lac Surprise in the area. So Lac Surprise, that's the only project that we have where we have yet to formalize a resource. Lac Surprise is, we see it as the western extension of Nelligan, the IAMGOLD main deposit. So to give you a sense of dimension, Nelligan, the 8.3 million ounces at Nelligan is within a pit about 3 kilometers long. The Lac Surprise has the potential to add about 1.4 kilometer of mineralization to Nelligan. So, and I'll also mention that Nelligan is growing towards Lac Surprise, interestingly enough. And it's right on the border. I mean, where we would like to drill, frankly, at Lac Surprise, we would need to put our drill rig on IAMGOLD's claims. And so Lac Surprise has, on its own, I don't think it's a standalone project right now, but it, as the western extension of Nelligan, it has quite a bit of value. And if you go back and look at our share price, you will see that during the years of COVID, our share price was running quite a bit. I mean, we went north of $1.50 at some point. And this was on the back of the drilling results at Lac Surprise. Then also in the camp, there's Monster Lake. Monster Lake, again, just to be clear, that's not ours. That's IAMGOLD. Monster Lake is a smaller resource, but very, very high grade, right? 14 grams a ton, as you can tell. But this is, you cannot use Monster Lake to mine first to lower the payback period of a unified camp, because it's an underground resource. It wouldn't provide you with the type of tonnage that you would need to feed the type of mill that would be looked at. But it is comparable to what Kinross has at Fort Knox in Alaska, for example, which is the same type of camp. So you call that a sweetener, right? So when you need high grade to run through the mill, that's where you go source it. And then without going into too much details, we also have Chevrier and Croteau. Both of them are growing about close to 1 million ounces at Chevrier, about 640,000 ounces at Croteau. A very decent grade Chevrier, very good grade at Croteau. But both Chevrier and Croteau are huge systems that provide for a lot of blue sky potential. And that's on top of, frankly, the potential to see new discoveries in the area. It's still a big land package, and we're convinced that there's quite a bit of new discoveries that can be added to it. This whole idea that this is a camp, I think, we're not the only one saying it. If you look for the last conference call that was held by IAMGOLD, analysts were asking management about the Chibougamau gold camp. And right there, to me, it's kind of a testament of where IAMGOLD is as a company. IAMGOLD, if you go back 5-7 years ago, went through a rough time where their balance sheet was stretched and they had to sell assets to fund the build of Côte Lake. Since the appointment of Mr. Renaud Adams as CEO, everything seems to be working flawlessly, and it's a company with unbelievable momentum, which is well reflected in their share price. But they've been laser focused on building Côte, and their message has been solely focused on Côte Lake to make sure that they were focused on de-risking that ramp up. But once it is completely de-risked, there's no more value at least for the public market. There's no more shareholder value to be created by continuing to keep the narrative solely on de-risking Côte Gold. So now the analysts are asking more and more, what's next, right? And what's next is for IAMGOLD to move into Chibougamau and advance Chibougamau. So they've been putting a lot more resource, time, and budget towards Chibougamau. But now the analysts that cover IAMGOLD are now asking more and more questions about the Chibougamau gold camp. And in the last conference call, the management of IAMGOLD mentioned that the way they look at this camp, they say it's not only one resource, it's not only Nelligan. They said if you look at map and sketches, it's really a trend. It's really a camp. It's not limited to one deposit. And they said, we're thinking big when it comes to Nelligan. And they mentioned they see this camp as, easily 15 million ounces plus, which we completely agree with. They say there's more discoveries to be made, but they also mentioned that it's a combination of open pits and underground type resource that can really be put together from day one to have a very strong economic as a camp, which has been exactly our view since day one. But now that IAMGOLD has been at the right place and doing the right thing in Ontario, now they're moving into Quebec, and they are about to become the driving force of this camp. So I think we're doing the right thing, and we're doing it at the right time, and we're also funding the right stuff. So I'll come back to that in a second to dive a little bit more into Philibert. And I also mentioned that IAMGOLD has been acquiring more assets into the camp, and be flying under the radar, buying private assets. But I mean, one that was not flying under the radar is obviously they bought Vanstar Resources a bit more than a year ago. Just to be clear, Vanstar Resources was the company that had originally discovered Nelligan. And up to the moment they made the acquisition, IAMGOLD owned 75% of Nelligan, Vanstar owned 25%. So they acquired Vanstar so they could own 100%. Obviously, if you know you're going to be moving into the camp and creating value for your asset, then the right time to buy your JV partner is right there. So I think that was a very smart transaction from IAMGOLD. But I also bought Yellow Lake Water, win-win, also in the same area that's kind of between their Monster Lake and our Chevrier. So they continue to move in. I'll just touch quickly on the valuation as well. They paid $40 an ounce for Vanstar in that acquisition. We're still trading below that valuation, but I'll mention that when they made that acquisition, gold was about just above $2,000 an ounce. Obviously, we're way above that now. And National Bank did a big piece of research discussing the Chibougamau gold camp as the next stage of development for IAMGOLD, and they mentioned that this camp is now viable and therefore should be valued at the same type of valuation that you see in Val-d'Or, for example. And so we're looking at about $130 an ounce of valuation. So it's really a camp that is primed to see a big revaluation and a lot of activities going forward. Now, I mentioned that we've been having a lot of success at Philibert, and yes, we did. So, put things back into perspective. The resource I've been referring to that was published in 2023. And since then, we've had tremendous success with our drilling campaign. So the 2 million ounces is within this pit, which is about 3 kilometers long as well. And we've had big hits, that was only 26 meter southeast of the pit, but we kept hitting all the way to 750 meters, 800 meters. So everything indicates that the mineralization continues here, and our goal is to link the open pit all the way to the small pit that we have into the resource here as well. So we've been focused on that quite a bit, and very successfully so. And then in the months ahead, in the next drilling campaign, will be to go after the northwest extension. And to that effect, we recently announced the acquisition of Hazeur, which we see as the western extension of this deposit right here. So we have quite a bit of room here to grow the open pit. And then the other thing that was really interesting recently, and one of the reasons why our share price has been acting better, is that we made a new discovery, and we found an underground mineralization underneath the pit right here. So an underground high-grade mineralization is not a first in the area, as obviously you've seen Monster Lake that IAMGOLD has very high-grade underground. But if you're going to find a high-grade mineralization, if you're going to find a high-grade underground resource, where you want to find it is underneath an open pit, right? Because instead of having to sink a shaft to access that resource, you first mine the open pit, and then you access the high grade via a ramp, which is it's not unprecedented, but it's like a detour, right? That Agnico acquired. So Agnico acquired Detour for the big open pit, but then the following year they did a PEA on the underground mineralization, and it's exactly the same type of step approach. And I remember Agnico being extremely enthusiastic when they were discussing the future of this underground potential. So we've been very, very successful at our drilling campaign. So obviously a new resource is in the cards for Philibert, but also next we need to go back and focus more on the other resource. I'm just moving here to the next slide. This may help show our Hazeur acquisition that I mentioned here. So the shaded area here, the 2 million ounces that we have, is the shaded area here. As you can tell, what we bought, the Hazeur property here, that's what you have in white here, right? And you can tell the geophysics kind of indicates that the deposit completely continues, and our deposit goes right into those claims. So we kind of, I think it was a nice little tuck-in acquisition that we made there. And as you can tell, there's still a lot of potential to explore all the way at depth, and we've been successful with the recent high grade discovery. So I mean, those are the very short version of the whole company. But I think we're doing the right thing and finding the right stuff at the right time in the right camp. So I think we have quite a bit of good times ahead of us here.
So Simon, could you tell us about yourself and your career?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the commodity space since about 20 years. So I mean, I started with CIBC with Gundy back in 1998, which became CIBC World Markets after that. So I was doing institutional equity sales, talking with fund managers, and then I joined Sprott Securities, the securities firm that was started by Eric Sprott. So I became a partner there. That was 2006. And we transformed this firm into Cormark, which is now, if not the leading, at least a leading firm, and we work very closely with Cormark. Then in 2010, I moved to the corporate side. I've been involved into many commodities, and more recently, we've been, in the recent years, we've been able to call the cycles pretty well. I mean, we did very well in the lithium space, for example. Our team did Lithium X, and then we sold Lithium X to a consortium, a Chinese consortium at the peak of the first lithium cycle. Then regrouped, same team, we put into Arena Minerals, where I was a lot more involved. And then we ended up selling Arena Minerals to Lithium Americas at the peak of the second cycle. Because you got to remember, those lithium cycles, they're very, very rewarding, but they last about 15 minutes. So we sold Arena to Lithium Americas. And after that, at that point, everybody was very hyped up on lithium, and no one cared for gold. But to me, that was the perfect time to really focus the energy or capital and start a gold company. So that's what we did. And now we're just getting started, right? And now we are now people are at least curious about gold. But the game has yet to start. And I'm convinced that we're going to see much higher level for gold itself, but that people are going to start caring enormously about gold stocks in the months and years ahead.
Fantastic. So how many shares do you hold of Northern Superior, and how important is it to your own net worth?
All of it. How many shares exactly? The financing we did last year, I bought another $500,000. The two financings before that, I put $250,000 in each of those financings. And that's on top of buying in a market that I've done in recent years. So I think I'm about at 3% of the company, but I would need to check. The largest shareholder of the company is Mr. Michael Gentile. He is at about 13%, if I recall. We also have Mr. Victor Cantori that owns quite a bit. And as a board altogether, we own, I think, approximately about 23% of the company altogether. So we've been always very supportive, putting our money into the company. And we're always able also to raise money on the right terms. So we no longer have any warrants outstanding, none. And that really always helps a company, a stock to perform well. You don't see that every day.
So how have you put together the team at Northern Superior?
So we have, I mean, I didn't go through our team there. I wanted to keep the presentation fairly short. but we have quite an impressive team. I mean, I think we have a very strong board first, right? I mean, I mentioned Michael Gentili. I think Michael is on his way to become the next Eric Sprott, which I discussed earlier. We also have a lot of technical depth, a very strong technical committee. And I mean, that came, it's one person after the other that we approach and get involved. And then as far as the team, the team hands-on, I mean, we have Adree Delazzer, who's our VP Exploration. She's very strong. I think you'll be doing an interview with her as well. She was at Detour that I discussed earlier that ended up being owned by Agnico. So she was a driving force building these ounces at Detour. So now she's full time with us, and she didn't come for me. She came for the project and the gold in the ground. We also have Melanie Pichon, who joined us from Eldorado, who's very, very valuable to the company as well. So, I mean, how did we put it? There's no secret sauce, but to a good asset, to have good assets into a company really help you bring in talent. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not here to take the credit of putting the team together. I think the gold in the ground helps doing that.
And could you just recap the history of Northern Superior? When did you get involved, and how it got where it is today?
Yeah. So, well, actually, one of the acquisition that Northern Superior made was a company called Royal Fox Gold. And Royal Fox Gold is a company that I started during the COVID days. And that's where really the team of Northern Superior comes from. So I started Royal Fox Gold with the idea of consolidating the whole camp. And at the same time, Michael Gentili had Northern Superior, and he was advancing Northern Superior as a key shareholder and a director. He was advancing Northern Superior with the exact same strategy. So it didn't take long for Michael and I to meet for coffee, and there was still steam coming out of that coffee, and we had agreed to merge the companies together. Right? There was no point of us competing with the same business plan if the plan was to consolidate things.
Let's speak to, if you could speak to the current cash and working capital position now with the financing finished.
Yeah, so we're very good now. We have a lot of leeway in front of us. So we raised $5 million of hard dollars. We still had, call it $1 million of flow through, $1 million of hard in our balance sheet. So that's $7 million. We're using $1 million to buy the Hazeur property and the Monster Lake East and Monster Lake West property as well that we're buying. So remove $1 million from that. Our burn rate on a monthly basis, obviously it fluctuates a lot with if we're drilling or not. But currently you're looking at about, I call it between $150,000 and $200,000 a month. So we have plenty of leeway now. We don't need to raise money for the time being. And we wanted to raise money now, do a small raise. Like I said, we could have raised 10 times more, but that's all. It's all we needed now in order to evaluate a different path for the company at this stage.
So this gives you runway into 2026.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. And what's the all-in drilling cost per meter?
It's very cheap in Chibougamau. It's surprisingly cheap. I mean, if you're looking at, only the drilling cost, I think you're even below 100. But all in, including feeding the crew and lodging the crew and everything, all in, we're still below $200 a meter. So yeah, it's everything is very accessible there, right? You can drive from Chibougamau. The crew will stay either in Chibougamau or in Chapay. There's plenty of nice logging roads that have been opened up by the lumber industry. And that's actually how this camp was discovered, right? Is the lumber industry that comes in, builds these roads, and then geologists stop on the side of the road and start looking at rocks. I mean, very, very good holes that came out of the Philibert discovery were literally on the side of the road. So all of that really helps keep a very low cost per meter.
Late last year, you set out to drill 20,000 meters,
Yes.
in the Chibougamau, primarily on Philibert. Have you completed that campaign, or are you still drilling?
Yes. No. So you need to pull out the rigs during the thaw season, right? When the snow is melting, you can't be active on the ground for that period. So we pulled out the rigs. I would say late April, early May, but I think it was late April. Same thing. But we had enough time to complete most of the 20,000 meters. Yes.
Well, I guess first of all, how many assays do you have left to release, or do you have any, or have all been released?
No, they have not all been released. We have more to put out, so stay tuned for that. Like I said, we've had very, very strong results announced already. More to come. And then it will be about compiling all the data and doing further work towards an update of the resource, and then preparing for our next drilling campaign, which is probably going to be a lot larger and going after other projects as well.
Still in the Chibougamau camp?
Oh yeah. I mean, now we have to drill Hazeur, right? So the northwest extension of Philibert. There's no doubt that we're going to want to make our underground high-grade discovery larger and see what the potential of that is. And then we have the Lac Surprise, we have Chevrier, and even Croteau that we can go drilling. So we still have a lot of fairly low-hanging fruit to keep adding ounces in that camp.
So, in other words, when roughly do you expect to go back to drilling?
So we don't have a definite plan to do something this summer. This summer is more about releasing drilling results, compiling data, and looking at a potential resource update. But for sure, in the fall, then we're going to be looking at doing something else. But we need to fully understand the data before we design our next drilling campaign.
So, hello, Adree. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, and it's great to talk to you today.
So, first of all, could you tell the viewers who you are and tell us about your career?
Yes. Well, my name is Adree Delazzer. I'm currently the Vice President of Exploration for Northern Superior. I've been working about 20 years now in the industry. I started actually in diamonds in the Northwest Territories for BHP Billiton at the Acadie Diamond Mine. It was a great time, a great way to start. As with BHP, they really teach you the right way to do things. And so I guess I got off without creating many bad habits. But really the great thing was it was a very active mining area with open pit and underground. So I got a lot of exposure to that side of the business. But as well, we were, actively trying to build the camp up to kind of increase the life of the mine. And so we really had all the tools we wanted to explore with. So it was a great learning chance. I was going to stay at that property and actually thought about staying as underground geologist, but started off in Labrador for uranium exploration, and I spent a couple of years doing that. It was a very aggressive time for uranium exploration in that area. It was called the Central Mineral Belt, which is, a very interesting geological area, but really gained a lot of, grassroots targeting. We did make a new discovery. I think we were the only ones in the camp at that time that made a new discovery. And but it wasn't exactly socially accepted, so we all moved on to rare earths, and I did rare earth exploration for a couple of years as well in Labrador. So we were able to spin some of our properties from uranium to rare earth targets, and it was a beautiful time to work. Labrador is an amazing place. So, and from there I worked in Newfoundland and mostly then on gold. So that's about when I started focusing on gold mineralization, also some base metals and other targets that you find in Newfoundland. And again, a really amazing place to work. And the great thing about it, we really had a lot of different stage targets. And Newfoundland, you just get exposed to a lot of rocks in a small area, so it's always great for a geologist. But really, from there, I went to Detour, and I spent, almost or over 10 years at Detour Gold. So I think most people should be familiar with the Detour Lake Mine. But that was started with Detour Gold. So I was there before the mine went into commission. We were still building up the resources and there before they started breaking ground. So exciting times, a lot of transition over that period. But really, we focused a lot as well on more greenfields as well, not just the near mine deposit. But so we did successfully find gold mineralization in the southern belt. And so that was the first time really anybody found something significant in that belt of the rocks. And really that was kind of our KPI at the time. But so that was exciting. It was called the 58 North. And we did bring that into kind of an inferred resource over that period. And then I was a part of the 2020-2021 big advancement on the West Detour. And with that, a bit of exposure to the mine as well. Was operating as the superintendent for the mine when I moved on. But so then I joined Royal Fox, it was called, and they had acquired the Philibert project, and that's really where my time in Chibougamau started.
First of all, to start it off, could you give us an overview of the geologic setting? Tell us about the Chibougamau camp, the genesis of it, structural controls, what type of deposits are found there, and give us maybe some history of it as well.
Excellent. Yeah, so the Chibougamau camp, I'm going to just first maybe cover our forward-looking statements if somebody comes after me. So you can see on this slide, we have the regional map right here of the Abitibi. So in this black square, we're kind of zooming into the Chibougamau camp. And it's one of the oldest, some of the oldest rocks in the Abitibi. Actually, when I worked at Detour, we were all the way over on the other side of the Abitibi. So I liked the north. I guess I stayed in the north. But, the thing about this camp, it's a bit different than your typical, especially the southern Abitibi camp, where you see at the lower end of this slide. And we'll zoom in and talk about this in some more detail. But really, most of the work in the camp was focused on what they call the Chibougamau type, or copper gold mineralization of the Chibougamau type, and also VMS style mineralization, or volcanic massive sulfide mineralization. So gold or orogenic gold was not always the largest priority of the camp.
How similar and different are the deposits in the Chibougamau camp to each other?
Quite different. So I'll go back to this. The common Chibougamau type mineralization sort of has two descriptions. Some of it looks more kind of porphyry epithermal related, and then you kind of get these polymetallic vein style, but it does all seem to be more related to the Chibougamau pluton and this folding event that went on at that time. There's also a lot of VMS mineralization within the camp, and most of it, though, is still in sort of that cycle 2 area where we call the Watchin Itchy, and a few other producing layers within that camp that produce some really spectacular VMS deposits. What's different about the southern camp is we seem to have more of a hybrid type of mineralization, so not exactly typical orogenic golden vein or quartz carbonate gold deposit. Our Falcon zone, our Philibert, and Nelligan, they all seem to be more magmatic hydrothermal and possibly extended multi-cycles. So we might have two types of mineralization going on in these deposits, and I think they're pretty confident about that now with Nelligan, and we see a lot of evidence for that at Philibert and the Falcon zone as well. Our Chevrier deposit does have more of a typical orogenic quartz carbonate veins, very, very strong anchorite and beautiful golden quartz veins. But there is a portion of that that's also more disseminated related. And it has been categorized kind of in multiple boxes, but I still think it's more classical orogenic, but there could as well be another phase of the mineralization there that we really don't understand. Monster Lake is a very high grade deposit. It is more of a vein related deposit. So we'll call them part of that orogenic deposits, but they all seem to also have a little bit of that don't fit perfectly into that classical orogenic model for the southern camp. Our Courtauld property up here in the north is more that classic quartz carbonate vein deposit, and you get some really spectacular golden quartz veins up here. With our deposits, we are investigating sort of that timing. There's still some work being done on timing for mineralization, but we do seem to be associated to these to more that the start of the syntectonic, maybe at the end of the synvolcanic period, and there could have been 2 episodes within that regime that's responsible for a lot of the mineralization in that southern camp. Whereas the Falcon zone and Nelligan do show some unique attributes, and mainly there's a lot of anhydrite in the Falcon zone, so we've recently had a master's done, and they do identify this. It also has a lot of intrusions related in the mineralization, even though it's hosted in the sediment basin. There's a lot of these porphyries coming through that are mineralized, and so we're actively examining that. And even at Nelligan, there is almost a different orientation to the mineralization, which is suspected to be related to this different event. So it's a bit complicated in that way, but the thing I really like about these deposits is we can follow them for a long time at surface. They seem to be following, key structures in the camp. So at Philibert, for instance, we're following that Guercheville splay, and we know that it's been quite mineralized and controlling mineralization in this area, and same with that at Joman.
Maybe we could showcase the resources here again. That would be really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so just high level or summary then. What's the difference and similarities between Philibert and Nelligan? And obviously Philibert is your flagship deposit.
Yes, yeah. So on this slide, we're just showing the claim blocks, but the dashed line is actually delineating those major faults that I've been talking about in the previous slide. The blue is the northern superior blocks. We just recently added this, which is our Hazeur and Monster Lake East properties. And you can see the kind of mineralization footprint here for Philibert and Nelligan and our Lac Surprise. And essentially, yeah, we're about 9 kilometers away from Nelligan. What is the difference? Well, Nelligan is hosted in, it is probably younger. It's hosted in the Capitina, which overlies actually the Chibougamau formation. So the mineralization might be a different age, but we don't actually assume they're that different. The style of the mineralization, they both show disseminated mineralization. Nelligan does have a fair bit of vein hosted mineralization as well, in multiple different styles or veinlets. At Philibert, we do see a difference between what we call the hanging wall and the footwall. And within the hanging wall, we do have gold and quartz veins, and we do believe this is more of an orogenic part of the deposit. Whereas at the footwall, it is mostly this disseminated mineralization, and actually the veins almost act like dilution in some of our zones. Although we do see a lot of silica within the mineralization, it's not where the gold is actually dropping out. It's dropping out with the pyrite alongside of these silicious zones, let's say. They're both hosted or related to these shear zones, so the D2, D3 shear zones. And we do have a number of cross faults in the area that do seem to be making an impact in this camp. So there's a few preferred directions, these N45s, N70s, that do seem to be cross-cutting and controlling to an extent the mineralization. For us, when I started, the mineralization probably extended about 3 kilometers, but was not continuous. There was a number of areas with gaps of 300 meters plus. But some of the work that we did in 2022 and 2023 kind of linked up that 3 kilometers, and we were able to put the open pit resource. Nelligan, I think now is almost at 4 kilometers, but we truly believe it actually extends to our Falcon zone, which, they're in the same rock type, in the same basin, on the same structure, with a very similar style of mineralization. So that would almost make that system over 5 kilometers if that's the case when we ever get the chance to link them together. But there's a lot of similarities definitely between them, and a lot of reasons that we think they are related. And yeah, our Chevrier deposit really, it, like I said before, maybe has more of an orogenic component, because we do see the more typical kind of quartz carbonate gold veins. But there is a disseminated system that abuts on it that looks very different, that could be of a similar style to what we see at Philibert.
When you say disseminated, is the gold disseminated, but you have disseminated, is it in sulfides or not in sulfides?
Yeah. So it is disseminated with the sulfides, as some of it is within the pores of the sulfides, but not really tied in. It's kind of in the holy pyrites, and it does seem to be acting free in the network. And then we have some growing around another pyrite. So there's about 3 generations, according to the recent work done on Philibert, and 2 of them being the pyrites related to that gold mineralization. And so we rarely see the free gold. We do sometimes, but it's not common in our footwall zone. And with that, really, we rarely do pulp metallics or this type of work. And when we do a duplicate, it's actually usually within 10 to 20% of the original assay, even in the high grade areas. Say over 5 grams material. Usually, we still have very good repeatability, which is quite unusual for an orogenic deposit. Let's say.
Is Nelligan also an orogenic deposit?
No, we call them both hybrid deposits, actually. So Philibert, Falcon, and Nelligan we call hybrid magmatic hydrothermal deposits. So like I'm saying, they seem to be overlapping. We might even have 2 phases, 2 very distinct phases of mineralization. One being, this more intrusion-related mineralization that's been overprinted by a later orogenic period. And that could have been part of that upgrading that we see in some of these zones. So, we do have some distinct kind of zonation within these deposits, and that's one of the reasons, or one of the suspects, is that we had an upgrading in the orogenic period following the bulk of the mineralization coming in with these syntectonic intrusions.
Philibert, how much of the gold is hosted in shears, and how much is just sort of disseminated and not associated with shearing?
Yeah, good question. It's actually all still has shearing. So our shear zones actually at our Philibert deposit are pretty much parallel to the sill, to the stratigraphy, and we have numerous of these repeating as we go along that 3 to 4 kilometers now of strike. And within that, they're also very silicious, and we see kind of a brittle ductile deformation. But the mineralization, or where the best results are, is where we see this disseminated sulfide. And that's usually peripheral to these kind of quartz zones, these silicious zones. But alteration does seem to be key. We definitely see a distinct alteration pattern that comes in that's associated with the mineralization, mainly albite and the silica. And we transition from this magnetite to pyrite, pyrrhotite sulfides, and that can make up to 15 to 20% actually concentrations of sulfide. And then that's, the higher grade units or the higher grade mineralization.
Adree, could you tell us what we are seeing in this slide? Tell us about Philibert, its geometry.
Yeah. Sure. So we're kind of zoomed into the Philibert area now. This would be our claim block you see on the outside. We just recently added the Hazeur property, which is contiguous on the side of the claim block. But really what you're seeing here is the green rocks being that Chibougamau formation, like I was talking about, which has this intercalated gabbros, which we assume are to be kind of co-magmatic. And really this is the preferred host at Philibert. And we have a number of these shear zones that are following that are subparallel to the stratigraphy in the area and seem to be related to that Gertrueville fault zone that I was showing on the previous slide as well, but you can see delineated around here. And really this looks to be a splay or almost a horsetail off of this larger kind of 80-kilometer east-west trending fault. And with that we have a number of high grade zones going across what we call in the footwall. And we have labeled them different foxes. So the red fox really was historically the most explored. And I'll show that in upcoming slides. We'll have a better look at the individual zones, but they are all part of this kind of gabbro unit that there is evidence it extends all the way to the extent of our claim block and possibly keeps going. But you're starting to get into that Cayapatina basin on the southern part of our block where you host the Nelligan, the Falcon zone.
And what are we seeing to the north? There seems to be a parallel gabbro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Nice catch. So there is evidence that there could be mineralization as well within this sill. We haven't done too much work in this area yet because we were mostly focused on the Philibert, the proper deposit, but it is something we're going to be looking at in a regional sense, and especially since a lot of this now is part of our Monster Lake East block as well. But they are mapped out as gabbros. And there is some evidence that these could, have some relation to some of the mineralization from the Chibougamau camp. So there is what you call the coming sill, and even the age dates now seem to be matching up, which is was a little unexpected when they did a lot of the work through the Metal Earth project in 2019. But yes, definitely more work needs to be done on the dating. And these yellow units are volcaniclastic, felsic volcaniclastic rocks that are part of that Gertrueville deformation zone.
Do you have any outcrop here?
Yeah, very little. Although the deposit itself was discovered in the 80s by prospecting, but that was more kind of float. They had found some float along the line around here, I think, and they did find some outcrop actually off of our property over here before they started to drill this area. But when they started to drill it, it went over quite a time period because they drilled some multiple small programs across that signature that they were seeing, and started to see this style of mineralization, which I suspect at the time was a little not common, and because we do not see a lot of very high grade at Philibert, so most of our assays are under 20 grams, so they range from 0.3, let's say, or 0.35 from our cutoff up to the majority up to 5 gram material, but very rarely do they go to the 20 gram even range. So back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of times companies needed to see those types of grade profiles to cause the interest. So a lot of this was kind of discounted and only considered to be an underground deposit. So really that was a big part of the work we did in 2022. Was to bring the deposit up to surface and to prep it for more of a open pit model.
Yeah, here showcase it. So maybe you can summarize the geometry of Philibert? And also, where does the bulk of the ounces sit? Do you have any higher grade zone?
So I'm just going to show this one quickly. I don't know. So you can see here the gray is the pit outline on the surface. On the bottom, it's kind of a longitudinal view, uncut. So anything kind of back here, like even these drill holes, are probably popping into the view. This was before we started the program last year. But essentially, even when we started, the deposit was actually two deposits. It was the east and the west deposit. So these were kind of there was about a 300 to 400 meter gap in this area, and in this area on the long section. And a lot of the mineralization did not come to surface, or it was not drilled, I should say, to surface. So in 2022, we did a lot of work to, we drilled on almost 17,000 meters. And most of that was, short holes. I think our average hole was 80 meters that winter. And that was to really just bring the mineralization into that upper 100-meter column here across that 3-kilometer strike. And in 2023, we did a bit more work in this area to kind of link these two areas. But really, that's why our pit's pretty irregular on that northern boundary. A lot of this is a lack of data. There was very little drilling still done in that area. So some of that was some of the work we did this year, and really why we had some success in this area. So I'll go on about that in a minute. But really wanted to continue here on this, and we worked to extend that along the strike, so trying to widen the pit to the same size as you see in the west. And like your question was asking, where's the bulk of the ounces? Well, the west pit is definitely the largest pit. It almost drives down to 500. It's short of 500 meters vertical depth. But we drive all the way up to above 150 as we get to the southeast end of the pit. So
how much of the ounces are in the west pit?
Yeah, about half of that 1.7, let's say, inferred, and the 273 indicated. About a half of it, maybe even a little more, is in that west pit. But we really think that the northern boundary here wasn't well explored either. And obviously we thought there was a lot of potential at depth. So we were trying to...
And how well explored has it been laterally? Because obviously we see the west pit is a lot laterally longer or thicker than the other pits to the east.
Yes, so there wasn't a lot of drilling on the northern boundary, and really that's what was part of our focus for this year. And a lot of that, this was really a big gap in this area. So there was really no drilling over that 300 about meters in the middle of the deposit. And same on the strike. So I'm showing everything that's back. There really wasn't a lot of holes along these trends, but we did dig these satellite pits from some historic work that was done in the area. So obviously we went in that area to feel it out to see if we can extend. And yeah, some of the results we gave out from this year were within this oval, and same with the yellow going underneath the current pit, especially in the southeast end. This has some of the results. So we, last fall put out this one, which was 3.59 over 7.7 meters. That was 800 meters east of the pit. And we put out this one, which was the 2.6 over 26.5 meters, which looks very, very much like the footwall zone we see kind of in the west pit. And this is what we call our red fox, our Arctic fox, the fennec fox, and the gray fox. So the southern part of that pit is what we call the footwall zones. And this mineralization really looked very similar, so that was exciting to us to really have pegged it outside of the pit. And in this area, we were more targeting what we call the hanging wall type of mineralization with this intersection. So the hanging wall mineralization kind of hovers the northern boundary, and really we don't think we've really delineated it in most of the pit for the rest of the pit. So we also did that in this area, and some of the results we put out last fall and this year came from that work as well. So we're now building that into the model and seeing what that's going to do to the overall picture. But definitely positive. We were able to follow that kind of key contact. It is it does seem to be a lithostructural contact. We do have these graphitic argillite horizon within between the basalt and the gabbro units, and that's where the mineralization seems to be hanging in that footwall zone. It is not as well understood, let's say, as our footwall zone, and a lot of that's because it really wasn't a focus of the historic work in the area. Really, they barely sampled it. So that's one issue we have with the pit. When I started, there was over 25,000 meters unsampled within the resource. So we had over 60,000 meters drilled in the resource. So actually almost 80,000 property wide, but just over almost 60,000, let's say, within this corridor in this area. And we've added, well, just above 40,000 over from 2021 to now. And a lot of that, like I said, it was the work in 2022 that we did to bring the deposit to surface, and the work we did on the extension last fall, and now the depth expansion this year.
Hole 484, 500, no, 501, and 498 showcase that you might have a continuous higher grade underground zone here that's potential amenable for underground mining. So how do you interpret these results? Where can you showcase them? And do you think they belong to the same deposit, or is there a fault zone in between, or what's going on?
So a couple things going on this slide. So like I've been saying, we do kind of have these distinct kind of higher grade zones and then kind of lower grade halos around them that do follow these sort of repeating shear zones. So we have a number of them along that 3-kilometer strike. But really, like I was talking about the hanging wall mineralization, this was some of the work we did in the fall that extended the mineralization east of the pit. This is a bit of an oblique view because Philibert is moderately tipping to the northeast. It's hard to show it kind of in a plan view. One thing I wanted to show on this slide is up until this year, really, we didn't really drill much in the deeper portions. Most of our work focused on the surface and in the northern part of that pit because it really didn't have much drilling. So we're showing all the drilling that's been done on the deposit. You can see there's very little drilling that was done on that northern boundary coming across that 3 kilometers. And with that, we extended a number, especially in this area where we had that historic gap, where really there was very little evidence of any drilling. And we were expecting to hit the mineralization here, which would be the down dip of what we have in the pit above it. And we did hit, it was okay mineralization, but really we kept going and we hit this, what we were hoping was these shoots could be continuing. And there's a lot of evidence that these are kind of moderately plunging now, unlike when I first started where we thought they were more steeply plunging to the east-southeast. So, but now it looks like it might be more of a moderate plunge, and we're seeing this. There's actually a well-developed lineation, and we did a pretty aggressive core orientation program this year. So we're incorporating all that into our results, and really that's where we got very excited. It was the only 3 holes we put in this area, but they essentially delineate about 150 by 100 meter area here. So these were 150 meters apart, and this one was 100 meters up dip. So you kind of made a triangle, but very nice consistency.
What's the distance between them?
These two are the furthest away. They're actually 150 meters away, and this one is drilled in between and above. So it's 100 meters vertical, and these are 150 meters along the strike.
So first of all, do you think they belong to the same body?
So it is suspected. I have another slide I'm going to show you coming up, but we think that there's the possibility for multiple shoots to be plunging off of the kind of main zones, these repeating zones as we go along the strike. So as I have them labeled up here, we have the red fox, which would be this area, the Arctic fox area, which is this area, the fault gap, which is where we drilled these holes and where we historically had that gap in the mineralization. Then we go into what we call the Phoenix Fox and the Gray Fox. So we think that there's a possibility for multiple of these stack systems coming off of these higher grade zones that we have delineated over time. And this one is possibly related to the Arctic fox area. Yeah, so I'm going to show you, this is just a section that was cut more like a long section, but it is inclined and kind of coming in between the two zones and actually constricted to a 50-meter slice. So just to highlight that. So then it's inverted back up so we can look at it. So you can see here the plunge says 55. It plunges it up a little more so it's visible. But essentially it is like a long sections, but and this would be what we call our red fox zone. This is the start of our Arctic fox zone, and we do see a displacement in this area with a number of these kind of north 20 faults in the area that do displace the mineralization, but it does seem to be more vertical with a bit of a strike slip on those faults. But generally there's not a huge amount of displacement. But you can see here these really seem to match up quite well, like we're coming into one of these shoots. Historically, we always thought the mineralization, as in this picture, looks to be quite vertical to the east, southeast. So this would have been the area we were assuming more for extension, especially at Red Fox, and same here for our Arctic Fox. But from this work that we did this year, it does look like they're more moderately plunging. So this could be the start of one of these shoots, and we really think that there's a possibility for multiple of these as we go across the deposit then. So that's pretty exciting to bring a lot of life to this, big open pit that we can now bring
the shoots
quality ounces from under the pit as well is definitely helps the economics and the whole area, I think, to show. The other thing I like about these intersections is really even within these intersections, there's rarely anything over 20 grams, and it's actually quite well endowed all the way through. And we showed some of that in the press releases. I probably should have grabbed one of those core photos, but it's sometimes we do get up to the 20-gram range, but generally not a nuggety system. We see kind of these well mineralized composites, and most of the material is 5 up to 5 grams, maybe 10 grams, and oddly up to 20 grams. But very rare that we go past that to be able to get up to those assays. It does show the strength of the mineralization within those composites, and I think this makes it more mineable in the end as well, especially in an underground scenario that the whole interval is kind of pay dirt in that sense and can go to the mill. So we're really excited about this area. It's an area that we really hadn't done not much work done historically. It was actually, like I was speaking, a gap in this area, and you can kind of still see that it's not as highly drilled as the other higher grade areas within the pit. So really there is no pit even above this mineralization. The edge of the pit, actually it stops before we would get vertically above those intercepts. But it does, we're right next to the pit. But the way the pit is currently designed, this would actually have no pit really above it. It's just hard to see, but yeah, you can kind of see it here that the pit didn't come into that section view. It's only starting right here, and then it's going to push more north to capture the mineralization of what we call that Fennec and the Fault Gap area here.
These Oreshoots, what are the geometry of those, and what evidence do you have for Oreshoots continuing to the west and maybe also east at depth?
Yeah, so in terms of the geometry, we assume they're very similar to Philibert. We still think this is trending sort of subparallel to that major shear zone in that northwest southeast direction. The widths can vary, so even right here, but they do seem to be quite consistent. 22 meters, 18 meters, 21.6 meters for those three intersections. We do get some higher grade cores, and obviously the dimensions of them can change, with this one having up to almost 12 grams over the 7 meters. How far they extend, that's something we're still learning. But generally in the stuff we've drilled near surface, so all the red fox, Arctic fox, they're usually, we have strikes of up to and over 500 meters, sometimes even 800 meters along strike, and then we sort of displace or hit one of these cross faults and then go into the next zone of mineralization. That's one thing, we're calling it new mineralization. It's possible it is displaced from this area, but I think it's highly unlikely because we actually hit gold where expected, from the down dip mineralization of what we call the fault gap area. So this is quite outside. It's more south than we would have expected to intersect on the down dip of the fault gap Fennec Fox area. But really, in terms of expansion here, yeah, it will be to come in and drill some strategic holes along those corridors to prove this theory up. And I think if it's successful, it really opens up a lot of opportunity for us to bring in some quality ounces into the system. And
So
kind of
where will
showing
it
that.
follow up in the next program that will start probably this
Yeah,
fall?
so definitely in this area along this kind of interpretive plunge that we're seeing. So again in here, and trying to bring it up to surface as well. That's one part of the puzzle we don't exactly know. I mean, all the mineralization in this area really does conform to the dip of the stratigraphy quite well, and we brought it up to surface with very little problems. But in an open pit kind of grade control sense, not in this type of necessarily grade range. So in 2022, for instance, we drilled a couple holes in this area right at surface, and I think right at the overburden bedrock, we colored into that mineralization, and very beautiful and very similar looking material. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here to expand that, but historically the plunge wasn't really investigated too much. One, there was not much structural data has been done on the deposit, and two, like I said, a lot of it seems to conform quite well to the dip of the stratigraphy, and there people just kind of grid drilled the zones. But when we came into here, so essentially, yeah, this is that area I was showing you with where we hit the new mineralization. So on this slide.
And will you also try to connect on the southeastern extension?
Yeah, so even this one, this 2.6 that we hit outside of our pit, from the fall, does seem to have that same type of plunge happening. So it's exactly that. That would be one of the areas we would probably go back in to prove up one of these higher grade shoots under the pit. And see, we're not sure yet how this is going to impact the pit as it is right now, but I think in an underground sense, we could have a lot more opportunity to bring in some of this mineralization into our resource, that's maybe past the open pitable areas. But that all determines on that corridor. As we widen the corridor, the mineralization, we can obviously go deeper with the pit, and that's really what's constraining the depth of the pit as we went to the east southeast.
Could we go back to where you have the resource sensitivity and showcase? Right now
Sure.
we have a 0.35 grams per ton cutoff grade. How would the resource change in terms of grade tonnage? Now here we go.
Yeah, okay. So, currently we use the 0.35 cutoff. We use the same same model as Nelligan, or as IAMGOLD did with Nelligan. But really, Philibert can perform well even if we increase it to 0.5, for instance. We really only lose about 10% of the the total ounces, but the grade goes up quite a bit. We go up to 1.33. And in terms of Nelligan, that's 40-50% higher than their grade. This makes a big difference in the early years of an operation. And we know those ounces come right to surface from the work we did in 2022, like I was just alluding to, that we colored into beautiful mineralization in this area, and coming right across the footwall zone over that 3 kilometers. So we really think that the pits could be modified to maybe bring more of those higher quality or higher grade ounces into the life of mine plan in the early years. And yeah, I mean, in terms of going lower, it's also a possibility in this camp, especially with the gold prices right now. But I think that's not exactly what we're aiming to do here. I think overall we would actually look at maybe trying to increase grade of the deposit, especially when we start to look at incorporating some underground into the next update.
As this is a disseminated deposit, is the grade quite homogeneous, at least in the open pits, or do you have a higher grade zonation anywhere in that? If so, where?
Mm-hmm. We do have higher grades, or sort of a zonation, I guess. But really, it's kind of a number of repeating, let's say, higher grade zones. So if we just look at the higher grade zones, you can almost convince yourself of upwards of 10. But really, I see the main ones being the ones we highlight here: the red fox, Arctic fox, the Falk gap, because it's just the gap, the fennec fox, and the gray fox. And these do seem to be distinct, although we are able to link mineralization between them. The grades do tend to get lower, although the dimensions can sometimes stay very similar. But we don't see as much gold endowment, but they're not zeros, and a lot of them are still within that cutoff or above that cutoff grade. So they're still impacting the pit.
But in the pits themselves, the grades are quite similar.
So, but across the strike, yeah, I would say very similar. The material, the let's say the highly altered, highly mineralized material is quite consistent across the whole deposit. So even the material we found in 448, it has a lot of similarities to the stuff we see here and to the stuff we've seen at surface, let's say in the Arctic fox zone.
What metallurgical test works have been done on Philibert?
Yeah, so not a huge amount, but we did do in 2022, I had to think what year, 2022, 2023, we took 3 composites, or actually the QP for the resource organized this, and that work came from the red fox and mostly the Arctic fox. So we took 2 from the Arctic fox, but essentially covered about 1 kilometer of the strike of the pit. So all focused on this area. It was kind of a regular, it was done with SGS, it was a regular flotation with which was supposed to be followed by a cyanidation of the tails. It actually performed quite well. I think we have it here. So everything averaged between 93 to 95%. It was hosted in, what looks to be about 10 to 15% of the mass, which was, that sulfide that we've been talking about. But the flotation was actually successful enough. There wasn't really enough gold left in the tails to pursue the cyanidation of the tails. So we opted not. We did regrind that mass to see if we could liberate more out of that portion of that sulfide mass, and that was quite successful as well. So the next step really would be to see if we could still get that same results with maybe a coarser grind. So right now we did the P80, I think it's around 80 to 90 microns, but we could actually look at going coarser, and then when they do the concentrate at the end, I think they go down to the 56 micron, but it's really, the test is on that regular kind of grind of about 80 microns. So we could look at that coarser grind, and 2, we could look at gravity as well and see how that would impact. And 3, we need to continue sampling just to show that consistency along the whole strike of the deposit. So we're in the works of organizing sampling for the east and the southeast end of the pit. And again, maybe look at a vertical zonation as well, although I really don't suspect any changes in that side. As I've been saying, the material we hit at surface and at depth, it looks very similar. So I don't expect any surprises. The other would be the hanging wall. We know that mineralization is a different style in the hanging wall. But again, it's not a huge part of our resource right now. So if we decide that this pit is going to push back to the north, so this boundary pushes back, and we include in more of that hanging wall material, I'll definitely push more met sampling in that area as well. That looks to be definitely free gold, but there's a lot of things that can impact it, and that can be the size of the gold and whatnot. But at Philibert, the work so far has been quite positive. It does show that the gold appears to be free by the way it's responded to the test, although it has a strong association to the sulfide.
And finally, on the metallurgy, how does the metallurgy compare to Nelligan's metallurgy?
Yeah, I haven't worked on Nelligan directly, but from what's been publicly released, it's I think they're using 83% average percent for the latest 43101. And it appears to be quite variable. And they do have some locked in the sulfide. So I'm not exactly sure of how much is locked in the sulfide, but there is a portion of the gold within the system that does not seem to be free. So it's requiring even finer grinds of that concentrate, because you need to get the cyanide to reach within the pyrite. So what they suggest, I think, in the 43101 is that they would grind to a certain level and then just regrind the mass pull, so like that 15% mass to that finer grind size, and hopefully then they could put it into the flotation circuit and be able to liberate the gold. And seems to be the best float they have at the moment, but they have done a lot more tests for sure than we have at Philibert, but it does seem to be more complicated, and some of it's, one, the gold is very fine, even if it is free, and 2, there does seem to be some that's locked in with the pyrite, not just next to the pyrite or growing within the pore of the pyrite, but tied into the pyrite. So yeah, back to sort of why we really think the southern camp is quite important. This circle is actually showing about a 15-kilometer radius, and you can see the ounces that are currently within that area on the table here, in the table to the left. And really, our Lac Surprise doesn't, we did not formalize any ounces to date, but we strongly believe this is part of that Nelligan system, and that, the whole project area here really should be together. If I look at it, when I was at Detour, the whole block of Detour would actually fit in this area, and included all of that. It was about 100 square kilometer property, so it was a big property. But so I'm going to start on some of the other targets, one being our Lac Surprise project, and our Chevrier project to the north. And here is the areas we just added. So this was the new acquisition. So we just acquired the ONGold blocks of Hazeur, Monster Lake East, and Monster Lake West. And this is IAMGOLD's Monster Lake property here. So we're kind of surrounding our Philibert property and the Monster Lake property, and really focusing along that Gertrude break that we've been talking about, that seems to be very important to the camp, and also covering a larger portion of the Fencamp break, which seems to be related to our Chevrier and the Monster Lake deposits. So our Falcon zone, it's another big property. So really, it's just on located here at the edge of our claim block, and then you come into Nelligan. Lac Surprise is the property, and this is the Falcon zone. This would be IAMGOLD's property here with Nelligan. So we're essentially at the edge of our claim block. But it was a big success, the discovery of the Falcon zone for the team, and a bit of it was because of the magnetic surveys that were done in 2019 that really helped to drive that interpretation. And we just had one of our team members actually just finished his master's on the Falcon zone, and this is some of the work he prepared. But this just puts Nelligan and the Falcon zone into relation. It's about 1 kilometer up to 1.3 kilometers long. We had it drilled down to 500 meters, but really most of that work is focused in the upper 300 meters. And it's hosted within the same basin, as the same rock types as Nelligan, and a lot of the same alteration we see is very similar to Nelligan as well. The controlling things in the area here, you can see the Hazeur pluton again. So that's a syntectonic pluton that seems to be very important to the area. You have these north 45 structures coming across that also seem to be very controlling, and a lot of these actually extend into our Philibert property. So you can see this is our Philibert, and these coming around the Hazeur pluton in this area, there seems to be a relationship to mineralization with this direction of structure, and you can even see the way that Nelligan's oriented somewhat, especially with these aligning, and I think these are some of the higher grade zones that they've been now finding. So what makes our Falcon zone unique is, well, I mean, it's hosted within this meta gray wacky unit that's very highly feldspathic, and we're in that D2 regional fold. And really, when they discovered this, they could see Nelligan was hosted within this kind of faulted basin, and when they did the inversions in this area, it was quite obvious that this looked to be the continuation. There was also some golden till anomalies in the area that did highlight that there was gold mineralization up ice. So some of this work was eluded from that as well, but was really a great success for Northern Superior at the time. And you can see some of the grades as we go along that corridor. There is other subzones within this zone, but most of the work has been focused in what we call the Falcon, which is that main corridor that we're showing on this slide. But what I like is there's a lot of opportunity along this whole package, and really that's going to be a lot of our focus for the upcoming year, is to continue exploring this package of the Gertjeville, Remick, Doda breaks, and we know that they're very important to the gold mineralization in the area, and that we have Hazeur in this area as well, which seems to also be important, and a lot of the deposits are within about 2 kilometers of that pluton. So, kind of staying in that optimal distance, and being proximal to the right structures in the right rock types, and to find new discoveries. We just released last week that the acquisition of Tama Gold, which included Hazeur, Monster Lake East, and Monster Lake West, has been completed. And what really excites us about adding this to our portfolio, number one, it is contiguous to our Philibert property, and as you can see in the red here is the current outline of our pit. This is where we did a lot of the work this winter on the extension and along that northern boundary of the pit and under the pit. But really we had planned to do work also in this area, but decided to wait until we actually had the Hazeur block in our own portfolio, because we strongly believe that the whole system can continue to the west, and there is numerous indications. One, there has been some limited past drilling, and it does show the same type of rock type, the same type of style of mineralization, and some interesting grades. It wasn't fully sampled, so it's hard to composite, but like I said, when you're seeing 5-gram material in these rocks, that's very significant in Philibert's system. But to show the full potential, you kind of have to sample all of the rock, and they didn't historically do that very much. So they just grabbed one or two of the best looking, and then we still have to ask some questions. But we're very excited to add this and to go on exploring as we want to the west. But there's also a number of more advanced showings. They've also completed IP on the property. There is RC drilling, so gold and till anomalies been done on the property, and some of this is untested. So we really plan to bring a lot of this into our models and really start to develop some phase 1 maybe drill targets, and possibly do some more geochemistry on the surface here to focus ourselves. But we know, from some of the work that's been done, there's a number of target areas that could probably be ready for a phase 1 testing, or even a phase 2 follow-up that had a bit of drilling in the past. Our Monster Lake East property really hasn't had a lot of work done. It recently did get a pretty high quality magnetic survey and electromagnetic, so EM was done VTEM really from Geotech. So that could be a very interesting survey for us to look at for future targeting. And really this is more, we could see Philibert style mineralization. You can see that a lot of the stratigraphy is actually following the same direction as Philibert. We're just on the other side of that Kirchville zone. Whereas the rest of the camp, a lot of it is actually going more in that northeast direction. We're kind of the unusual ones going in the northwest. But there is a number of targets throughout the camp that do prefer that orientation as well. So, we think that could be a similar scenario with Monster Lake East. And, to have the Fen camp, we know this is a very important shear zone within the camp, hosting our Chevrier deposit and IAMGOLD's Monster Lake. And so we're excited to go in here and possibly, we haven't fully decided, but most likely going to use some geochemistry and maybe some geophysics as well. But there has been a fair bit done that we really just need to incorporate and integrate into our current models.
Could you summarize what exploration work will you undertake in the second half of this year besides Philibert, based on what you know now?
Yeah, so, definitely we would like to, this is probably more computer work for this phase, than and maybe some boots on the ground. There is some oak crop and whatnot that we would like to go look at, acquire any old core or any other assets we can grab to relook at as well. But for Hazeur, Monster Lake East, and West, we most likely maybe not drill this year, but could in early 2026. For this year, besides Philibert, we would like to focus on the Lac Surprise area, like I was talking. So this is definitely a priority corridor for us. And this is an area where we are looking at some more surface surveys, be it geochemistry and or geophysics. I'm probably alluding to geochemistry for this area. For these types of deposits, it does seem to be the better way. And that be if it's going to be RC or if it will be dirt bags. In the past, we've actually done hand dug till, and it works not bad in this area. And there's a lot of areas that you're able to do that, which makes it a lot more cost effective. but we're still looking at our options in that way. But we think, there's a lot more potential. And this is a lot of strike that we can cover along that Gertcheville kind of Dodo corridor that's also still within the Durlit Slimecline. So we know that's a very very prospective area, and really looking at it, in light of some of the new learnings we've made in the camp. Some of that being the direction of these kind of northeast trending faults that seem to be important. To the indications of the implications of the plutons in the area, and if we do have these intrusions. So sometimes these intrusions weren't even sampled, and we know we have a couple here that are showing very high backgrounds that could be very interesting targets as well. And outside of that, I guess Croteau, we maybe possibly drill test that area I was speaking about. That would be kind of a phase 2 drill program on that area. But really, we still see most of our focus being in this area. Chevrier, we do have some mapping, as I said, planned for some of these northern blocks. There's a fair bit of outcrop in this area, just to kind of reassess and learn ourselves, because a lot of us haven't worked in those areas. So that are presently with the team.
But so really, if you look at the past or the coming 12 months, definitely more than 50% of the drilling will be on Philibert.
It's a good question. I mean, we do have a technical committee and a group that we usually go in to get these budgets approved. For this year, it was mostly decided, but stuff, it's exploration. It always changes with discovery, with maybe new money that we didn't expect to have. So we constantly reassess, but I would still say, Philibert is most likely going to get, the 30 to 50% of that budget, and Lac Surprise to also get a portion of that budget, as we think this is still the main corridor that's going to be impactful in the early planning stages of bringing this to an operation.
So ONGold, you own 56% of ONGold now.
56, correct. So
56,
we were
exactly.
diluted with the latest financing that they've done, yes.
So this is about, give or take, I think it's around 15 million, maybe a little bit more in terms of value.
Yes.
Yeah,
just
15 million.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about what's the rationale for spinning out the company?
Yeah, so I mean, first, where the company ended up being created, and a little bit about why Agnico became a shareholder there, right? The main asset of this company now is Monument Bay, right? As I mentioned, Monument Bay is one of the largest undeveloped resource in Canada. You're looking at about just approximately 3 million ounces put all together at very decent grade, at around 1.25 grams a ton. You may recall Mega Precious. So Mega Precious, their main asset was Monument Bay. Yamana acquired Mega Precious for Monument Bay. And then Agnico, you'll recall, ended up buying all of the Canadian assets of Yamana. So Monument Bay ended up with Agnico. Agnico is a large company that does a lot of things. So Monument Bay ended up on the back burner at Agnico, did not deserve to be there. So Agnico saw ONGold as the right custodian for the asset, with the right team and with the right approach in Northern Ontario. Because Northern Ontario, it's close to Quebec, but it's a very, very different jurisdiction. And Northern Ontario is all about social acceptability and relationship with local communities and First Nations. So we really created a different kind of company there, and that's definitely part of the reason for the spin out. So we created a company with a team that had good success advancing, de-risking, and permitting mines in Ontario. The team is led by Mr. Kyle Stanfield, who permitted 2 or 3 mines in Ontario. So Agnico saw ONGold as the right custodian for this asset, hence the partnership. So then Agnico ended up owning 15% of ONGold. And then the second asset that we have in it is the famous TPK project. TPK is definitely North America's, potentially the world's largest golden till anomaly. It's really gold kind of free in the ground that typically comes from a glacier that's been moved around and scraping the ground and leaving a trail of little pieces of gold. So you need to find that source. You need to find that glacier if you want. There's a hole historically that raised some eyebrows there. It was about 26 grams or close to 26 grams at more than 13 for more than 13 meters. There's also a very famous boulder that was found on his property of more than 700 grams a ton gold. So it could really be a big discovery in the making. When we got our permits to drill that last year, Barrick actually, and that's public information, went around us and claimed, secured a bunch of claims around TPK. So that could be a big discovery in the making. But even though we have the permits to drill, we want to do the right thing and the right approach. So we are in constant discussions with the local communities, because we really want to do this with an appropriate partnership, where if we succeed and make money, so can they, and help them support their development. So it's a different kind of company, and that's what was needed for this for the jurisdiction of Northern Ontario. That was reason one for the spin out, a different type of company, different type of approach, but also a company our size. If you're going to try to advance too many projects, you end up diluting yourself too much, and it becomes very, very difficult to create shareholder value by doing financing always at a higher level. So it was easier to create a new company with its own shareholder base, its own financings, its own focus, to focus on Ontario. So far it's worked out spectacularly well, right? Our share price of Northern Superior is showing strength. It reacts to good news. We have a very clean capital structure, and ONGold has the right approach. So ultimately, nothing stops us from distributing those shares to our shareholders. But we want to be patient and be a good partner for the time being.
So ONGold just raised. What is the financial position of ONGold, give or take?
I think they're just about around $5 million now on the balance sheet.
So what is Northern Superior's plan for its shareholding in ONGold? If you could add some more detail to it.
Well, I don't think we have a predefined plan, right? Like a lot of companies, when they do these type of transactions, they make the mistake of distributing those shares to their shareholders way too quickly. And when a new company gets listed, they don't get liquid on day one. Liquidity comes over time. Liquidity comes from progress, so over time, a company gets more liquid. And when that becomes the case, then you can distribute the shares to your shareholders, and people are happy to own them, and because they know they can sell them. If you distribute the shares of a company too quickly, when the stock is not listed, just a few people selling those shares will create pressure on the stock, and then everybody sells their shares, right? And I've seen horror stories on that front. So that's the reason why we've been patient, and we have yet to distribute them. We could distribute them partially or totally at some point. We could sell a block of those shares to another company who would like to be involved in ONGold. But we don't have a definite strategy. The strategy will be established as both company evolves. Really.
So, how's the infrastructure in the Chibougamau camp?
Everything's there. Like it is as good as it gets, right? So you have the roads are there, the power is there as well, and the suppliers are there as well, right? It's a mining environment, so suppliers are there. You have qualified staff that is available, and then you don't have to do a camp. People go back to live or stay in either Chibougamau or Chapais. So there's nothing missing. You have a coffee shop. You can drive to a coffee shop quite easily when you're working at site. So there's nothing missing when it comes to infrastructure.
And what royalties are there on Philibert?
So there's 2 royalties, and each of them can be bought back. Half of them each can. So a 2% royalty with the SOQUEM, which is the government of Quebec, from who we acquired the asset, and half of that can be acquired back. And then there was another royalty also, and same thing, it can be bought back as well. So all in all, you're looking at only 2% royalty on Philibert, which is very manageable.
And what's the buyback approximately? What's the cost to buy back?
1 million for one and 2 million for the other.
Okay, that's good. And what First Nation group are you working with in the Chibougamau camp, or groups? And what's your relationship with them?
Yeah, I mean, the relationship is very good. It is a very constructive and advanced local community. They are supportive of mining, and the thing about Quebec that's very different from Ontario is that the First Nations who do support development have seen benefits from that. So if I look at I often mention that the Cree Nation in Quebec, they have presence downtown Montreal with a building. They have their own commercial airline called Air Quebec. And they understand the process, and they understand when to ask for what in order to benefit the most from the development. I have lost way too much money in my past not to fully appreciate how important the relationship with the First Nations really are, and it's part of the reason why I like to be involved in Quebec. Things are. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's never easy, and it comes, with a lot of work and attention. But I've seen horror stories elsewhere before, and where I want to stay away from that.
And so you own 75% of Philibert, and SOQUEM owns 25%. What is the JV structure, and can you purchase the remaining 25%?
Yeah, we have an option to buy that remaining 3.5%. Which is only for $3.5 million. So obviously, that would be very accretive if we proceed to acquire the remaining 25%. Having said this, if we do not exercise this option, then when the option matures, then the government SOQUEM will need to contribute 25% to their of our budget. Right. So right now, even though we have 75% of the joint venture, they do not need to contribute 25% of the expenses, because that wouldn't make any sense, because we can buy the remaining 25% and they will end up at zero. So it doesn't make sense for them to contribute that 25%, obviously. But once the option mature, if we decide not to acquire the remaining 25%, then they will need to come up with 25% of our expenditures. Or, obviously, if they don't, then they get diluted over time.
When does the option mature?
March 31st, 2026.
So how's the permitting process in Quebec? Could you add some more color to that? Give some color on permitting timelines for developing mines.
So, I mean, the permitting, so where we're at as a company, the permitting is fairly straightforward. All the permits that we need for drilling campaigns tend to come quite fast. I mean, we're looking at 30 to 60 days, typically speaking, to get those permits. So it is, like I said, it is, and obviously to permit the operation, to build a mine and all that. I mean, that's it's a long process. But the good thing about Quebec is that it's a clear process. So you need to go through it, but things get permitted in Quebec. That's what the key is.
So what is the future plan? This might differ a bit, but I would like to hear your thoughts on updating the resource and doing a PEA.
I don't think we have a definite plan at this stage. I think we don't necessarily want to go faster than IAMGOLD is going, right? I think this is the moment now where this camp needs to find a way to come together. And there's many ways, obviously, that this camp could come together. But I think everybody that knows the Chibougamau Gold Camp would agree that all of this needs to come together before anyone, waste time and resources doing a PEA that ultimately will just be thrown out when all of it will come together. So I think for us, the best thing to do is to keep on building ounces and keep on building good ounces and high grade ounces and ounces that have good metallurgy. And that is where you're going to add a lot of value to the camp. Now, how this camp could come together? Well, there's many ways. Obviously the IAMGOLD could acquire Northern Superior. That's a simple way, but it's far from the only possibility. So first, a joint venture could be feasible, where you put all of these assets under one roof in a joint venture, and this allows you to do a PEA, an advance of feasibility study, by feeding all of it to a same mill and feeding the higher value material first to that mill. So a joint venture could make sense, but also somebody else could come in and get into the camp. So if you're a senior producer that wants to have access to a camp of this size, then you can acquire Northern Superior and then do a joint venture with IAMGOLD to put it all together. So, but I think there's so much value to create by putting it all together that I think you can trust the industry to find a ways to put it together. So I think that's how it's going to happen. I mean, the analyst that covers IAMGOLD did at some point mention in a research note that he thought that it would make sense, and he thought that IAMGOLD could welcome a joint venture partner for the whole camp, which, like I said, would open the door for a larger company to potentially acquire Northern Superior and then do a joint venture with IAMGOLD. And interestingly enough, this question was asked the CEO of IAMGOLD in their last conference call, the last quarterly conference call, and they said not for the time being, right? They said IAMGOLD is a different type of company now. They have a lot more financial flexibility, and they don't see the need to bring a joint venture partner at this stage. But I think he was really answering the question in regards of the asset they currently have, i.e., why would they bring a joint venture partner into Nelligan when IAMGOLD can easily afford to drill out these assets and keep building these ounces without diluting the ownership at this stage. But I really don't think he was closing the door to eventually having all of it under a joint venture. Very, very different topic.
And what is your relation with the IAMGOLD?
I mean, we're very good neighbors. It's not a big industry. Obviously, we know all the players very well. So we have good affinities. We know the management there well. It is, I would say, as good as it gets.
And I think it would be good. I mean, you mentioned this in the presentation, but if you could really summarize or make the case for why Philibert is attractive enough that it it's beyond doubt that it's more valuable to have it developed and processed before or simultaneously as the Nelligan deposit in a future mining scenario.
Yeah, like I said, we remain we feel very strongly that Philibert is the starter pit of the area because we have a higher grade. The overburden is not very big either, so that helps, and it can be optimized to get a higher grade, even higher grade than the resource indicates. And then we have a very strong metallurgy as well, right? And so all of this gives you a lot more gold per ton that you mine and process, which, if you start with that, will allow you to greatly reduce the payback period of the project, have a much better IRR, have a much better feasibility, have a lower cost of capital to build the operation. So all of this makes sense. And like Mr. Adams, the CEO of IAMGOLD, said in the last conference call, this Nelligan is not a unique asset by its own. It's really a camp. And it's comparable, for example, to the Fort Knox mining complex of Kinross in Alaska, or I would say it resembles a lot the Rosebell mine complex that IAMGOLD used to own in South America. And IAMGOLD has a good experience to mine both types of ore, i.e., an open pit and also higher grade underground material. It's an expertise that IAMGOLD has. So IAMGOLD is very well, very uniquely positioned to really create value and build this Chibougamau gold camp. So IAMGOLD has been performing extremely well. I happen to be a very happy shareholder. And it's a very, very strong team. And Mr. Adam, the CEO, obviously he is from Quebec as well. And he's been talking publicly about eventually creating a Quebec Inc. company with the Quebec assets of IAMGOLD. So I think IAMGOLD is extremely strategic to the Canadian mining industry. I am convinced that it's only a matter of time before one of the senior producer acquires IAMGOLD. This is not news. It's been speculated about for quite some time. I think it's unavoidable that IAMGOLD would be acquired eventually. Not in the short term. I don't think we're there right now. I think the Ontario operation needs to be entirely de-risked, but over the next year or so, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And then maybe the idea would be to spin out the Quebec asset, right? The Quebec Inc. company that Mr. Adams referred to publicly at a conference in Quebec City last year. And IAMGOLD also has Westwood in Val d'Or. That, again, great turnaround story. Westwood used to be a very problematic asset for IAMGOLD, and now it's doing tremendously well. They were able to kind of reduce the size of the operation at Westwood and really focus on what was more profitable. And now it's doing very, very well. So it's another small jewel that's in IAMGOLD in Quebec.
In the case of IAMGOLD being acquired, a spin-out would probably be better. I mean, because there's some risk dependent on who the acquirer is, that Chibougamau camp would be less prioritized depending on the acquirer's development pipeline. So if you could talk to that.
Listen, at this type of size of a camp and where it is located, and in this market, this thing is not going to stay on the back burner. If it's IAMGOLD that builds it, or if it's another major that builds it, somebody's going to make sure that this camp gets advanced.
You outline multiple pathways for value creation for Northern Superior shareholders, JV, straight up M&A, all depends on a bit what happens with IAMGOLD. But do you have any scenario that you view more as likely or as more preferred for Northern Superior?
No, I don't think I have a scenario that I prefer. I've learned my lesson of not selling too early. One of the lithium asset that I mentioned earlier that we sold it for $265 million high-fiving each other in the office, only to see the buyer of that company doing a financing at a $3 billion valuation a couple of years later. I happen, and we happen as a group, to be extremely bullish on the sector. I don't think we want to sell too early. Obviously, there's always a price for everything. But it always comes down to the fine print, right? And how things would be valued. I'm first a shareholder. I happen to run the company, but I am first a shareholder. And if the price is right, I will be very happy to tender my shares. But the price needs to be right.
So then, with that in mind, where do you envision Northern Superior Resources in 2 years from now?
We have a group that is quite aggressive. We are a group that is quite capable. And now we are entering a market that we haven't seen since 55 years. So I don't think we'll be sitting on our laurels and taking the easy path of just building ounces. I think you can expect this company to surprise people of how fast we can grow and evolve.